Santa Monica Studio has a lot riding on God of War Ragnarok as it concludes its predecessor's story and provides answers to questions that have been haunting players for 4 years. The franchise has come far from being a beloved action-adventure hack and slash title from the 2000s, curating one of the most intricate tales in video games in modern iterations. However, it can be tricky to interweave a complicated saga with an intimate story that centers around a god from a different pantheon. That is one of the many hurdles Santa Monica Studio has to overcome while also aiming to set new standards for blockbuster titles. God of War Ragnarok's plot takes inspiration from the complex poetic and prose Edda, but tweaks the mythology to tell an enthralling narrative that crescendos with twists, hardship, and redemption. While God of War Ragnarok's grand overarching story might be about the end of the world, the more engrossing plot revolves around the fractured relationships between various characters and how they set up stakes for the eventual climax. In the wake of Atreus trying to understand his role, he must keep some secrets from Kratos, much like how the Ashen God hides his past. Unfortunately, this secrecy causes much friction and distrust between the two, causing the relationship to hang by a thread. This precarious theme of doubt extends to almost every facet of storytelling, as it is also a prevalent theme among Vanir and Aesir manages in God of War Ragnarok. The constant doubt and subsequent actions cause a chain of events that put prophecies into effect, alter fates in unexpected manners, and throw a wrench at every God of War Ragnarok theory out there. Speaking of throwing things, God of War Ragnarok's gameplay transcends its predecessor by offering a more free-flowing combat loop filled with exhilarating brutality. However, Santa Monica Studio flourishingly addresses one major criticism of God of War: not having enough variety. In God of War Ragnarok, choice seeps through in almost every gameplay characteristic. Players will now encounter different types of mythological enemies with varying attack and movement patterns to keep them on their toes. The same intuitive improvements have also been extended to Kratos, who can now use diverse combos and abilities to rip apart foes, making him a force to reckon with. While combating enemies, players will no longer have to suffer the same Draugr in every area, as each realm features a different type of foe. To make things more interesting, healers often support these enemies, forcing Kratos to take them out before delving into a heated battle. It's not that simple, though, because these healers often support Ragnarok's formidable enemies, all while being hidden and hard to reach. Continuing the theme of variety, Santa Monica Studio also weeded out the repetitive mini-boss battles Kratos often encountered in the previous installment. Now, the father and son dual battle bosses from a diverse pool that have their little intricacies. In addition, these encounters always feel different, and many heart-pumping confrontations emerge from nowhere. But the element of surprise is one of many challenges players need to be cautious of, as these bosses are often bold and more strategic. They now charge at Kratos with impunity and can effectively defend themselves using shields and magic. Some of these shields can only be broken using new Guardian shield mechanics, or a particular arrow from Atreus' quiver to circumvent their defense. When not battling mini-bosses, God of War Ragnarok's semi-open world has much to do. Each of the explorable 9 realms look dazzling no matter how idyllic or desolate. But within these gorgeous worlds, players will often run into treasure chests, mythological runes, Odin's ravens, and other rewarding puzzles that require analytical eyes to solve. These puzzles often make clever use of existing and new mechanics that make God of War's versions look archaic and very basic. Having said that, many areas are impervious as they either require an ability that gets unlocked later in God of War or requires backtracking that could annoy some players. Apart from gameplay, God of War Ragnarok also features exemplary side quests that are deeply rooted in the Norse pantheon. Many of these side activities add more context about certain characters and their role in the mythology, while others can be absolutely hilarious. Santa Monica Studio managed to strike the right balance of offering compelling, informative, and light-hearted quests that make experiencing them highly delightful and rewarding. Improvements in God of War Ragnarok have been made across the board, including the many RPG elements. Players will now be able to create builds for Kratos that can focus on different attributes that suit different playstyles. However, the stark difference from its predecessor is that players can now use the auto-equip feature, enabling them to spend less time in menus and more time splitting enemies apart. Seasoned players can also fine-tune builds using enchantments, a more elaborate skill tree, and God of War Ragnarok's new armor customization options. Furthermore, players will also be able to enhance specific skills that can focus on strength, defense, or runic upgrades. Another great addition are the different types of Spartan Rage abilities that can now be used to heal Kratos or let him unleash violent blows with his weapons. Overall, the role-playing systems will appeal to beginners and veterans depending on how much they want to customize Kratos' build. Santa Monica Studio successfully manages to set a new standard for graphics, but for a narrative-driven title, having high-caliber voice acting is paramount. Performances by every actor were delivered with such conviction and sincerity that one tends to forget they are acting out a virtual character. As mentioned in our God of War Ragnarok preview, cutscenes and in-game conversations do a brilliant job of suspending disbelief and creating a sense of urgency that many games fail to capture. The developers also addressed one of the more prevalent visual issues from its predecessor, dreary animations. From boss fights to brutal takedowns, combat animations no longer appear recycled, where each varies depending on the enemy Kratos is combating. Of course, players should not expect an infinite number of different animations, but they are enough to keep immersion intact. For what it's worth, God of War Ragnarok's performance is a marvel to behold on the PlayStation 5. Even when combating multiple enemies, the game runs smoothly at 60 FPS most of the time, with very few instances of minor frame rate dips. Additionally, if players want to enjoy God of War Ragnarok at 120 FPS, they will require a display with an HDMI 2.1 port. Should you play God Ragnarok on PS4 or PS5? Laura Jackson, Screen Rant's gaming lead editor. With many still unable to secure a PS5, there are likely plenty of fans wondering if God of War Ragnarok is worth playing on PS4, or if they should continue to hold out for more PS5 stock. Playing the game on both PS5 and PS4 Pro, this reviewer found God of War PS4 to run perfectly well, still managing to surpass its 2018 predecessor with its impressive visuals and flair. Those purchasing for PS4 Pro won't be disappointed in the game, which improves greatly on God of War in every way imaginable. Ragnarok takes up more space on PS4 than PS5, and is considerably louder as the console tries to keep up with processing, but runs smoothly. That said, playing on PS5 makes for the better overall experience, offering richer, smoother, and more immersive gameplay that will take one's breath away. God of War Ragnarok might be the best PS5 game to date, and in this reviewer's opinion, it's worth waiting to experience it as the current-gen masterpiece it truly is. While impressive performance is a strong point for God of War Ragnarok, it's worth mentioning an encounter with a bug during a story mission. This was the only noticeable glitch where after a cutscene, Kratos was unable to access the sled as it would teleport into an inaccessible area. While this minor bug was easily fixed by restarting the game, a potential patch is expected close to launch that might fix it permanently. Santa Monica Studio has also implemented an abundance of accessibility staples, including visual aids, features, audio descriptions, HUD customization, and an auto pickup feature for essential items. Of course, apart from God of War Ragnarok's reliable accessibility settings, players can also expect the usual DualSense features, such as adaptive trigger resistance and responsive haptic feedback, all fine-tuned according to each weapon. Apart from reinventing a highly complex saga, God of War Ragnarok manages to reinvent itself with many highly needed improvements. These refinements eventually stack up to deliver a complete experience that makes its predecessor look archaic. With all its splendor and minor shortcomings considered, God of War Ragnarok manages to set a new standard, striking the right balance between profound storytelling and invigorating gameplay. God of War Ragnarok releases on November 9, 2022 for the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4.